All right, this is Free Enterprise, chapter 22, lessons 1 and 2. I'm doing the whole thing. Y'all know how it go. It might look like a lot, but it's not a lot. If y'all give me 25 minutes of your time, I'll finish a whole lesson in class. But I ain't taking 25 minutes on this. Like, I'm trying to knock this thing out way faster than that. So just stick with me. I'm going to try to repeat myself 2 times like I did for word geography, and then move on to the next note. I'm not going to do much commentary and like explaining things. I would like to, but this video will end up being 40 minutes long, and I'm not trying to do that. So we're going to start with section 1, which is talking about the details of what a federal budget is. So it's just basically learning the basics of it. And then lesson 2 is how do you create that budget. I would try to cut down on how much notes that y'all take, but y'all tests are so detailed that you really can't cut much out. They ask like very intricate questions, and so I gotta go over things intricately to make sure y'all got what y'all need. So just bear with me. Fiscal year. First thing, fiscal year. Put this down. It's a 12-month period to keep accounts for the government. A 12-month period to keep accounts for the government. Just a little fun fact, this is going to be probably a test question. I think I saw it. The fiscal year begins on October 1st to September 30th. So I basically just gave you an answer. You didn't have to type it in. Maybe you chose to, but it's October 1st to September 30th. That's our fiscal year as the United States government operates. So when it comes to building a budget for the U.S. government, there are 3 steps. I'm going to go over those 3 steps and then go over some of the terms and what they mean. Step number 1 is the president makes a budget. Step number 1, the president makes a budget. Step number 1 is the president makes a budget. Step number 2, everybody, step 2 is Congress agrees to the budget. So they got to vote on it. Step 2, Congress agrees to the budget. Step, well, not step 3, but appropriation bills. What is that? You need to know what it is because it is step 3. Put down for appropriation bills, it gives the official approval of how to spend the money. It's the official approval on how to spend the money. It's the official approval on how to spend the money. And step 3 is Congress passing an appropriations bill. Congress must pass an appropriations bill. Congress must pass an appropriations bill. So, when you look at it, those are the 3 steps. Now, in those 3 steps, there were some terms and stuff that they mentioned in the textbook. I'm going to go through and explain what those terms mean. So, mandatory spending is a term that if you were reading a book, you would see it. Here's what mandatory spending is. This is spending that is set up by law. Spending that is set up by law. Spending that is set up by law. All right, so each year they get like money that they can spend, and like certain laws say, okay, you can spend this much on this thing. The opposite of that would be discretionary spending. So for discretionary spending, put down spending choices that change year to year. Spending choices that change from year to year. Spending choices that change from year to year. Right? So that's basically like a real fast version of the budgeting process, but that process doesn't always work, and the president don't always come up with a budget that everybody likes and they can't agree. So either there's 2 things you can either do, and the book don't talk about this one. You could have a government shutdown, but in most cases they don't do that. In most cases they have what they call a continuing resolution. So for continuing resolution, just put this down. When they can't pass a budget, they use the one from last year. That's a continuing resolution. When they can't make a budget, they just use the one from last year. When they can't make a budget, they use the one from last year. That is what a continuing resolution is. So anytime that the President and Congress don't agree on what to spend, how to spend, continuing resolution, we're going to just do what we did last year. Revenue. So I shouldn't have to explain what revenue is, but I will just put down is the money the government collects. Is the money the government collects. The money the government collects. The biggest source of revenue for the government, you guessed it, is income tax. That's all you got to put for biggest source. Income tax. Biggest source is income tax. So all the money that they take out of your check each, I think only Nelly is the only one with a job, but you'll see once you get a job, they take money from you. That's all income tax, and it's broken up and they tell you what they're taking it for, but the money they take from you is your income tax, and that's the biggest source of money that the government gets. Taxes is different for different people, and now we in the taxes section. There's 3 different types of taxes, and I know that this is a test question too, so please make sure y'all get this right. So first, progressive tax. Put down the tax rate goes up as the income goes up. Repeating, the tax rate goes up as the income goes up. Again, the tax rate goes up as the income goes up. So that's a progressive tax. Next would be proportional tax. Put it has a constant rate regardless of income. It has a constant rate regardless of income. It has a constant rate regardless of income. And then the last one is a regressive tax. Put it takes a smaller percentage of your income the more money you make. It takes a smaller percentage of your income the more money you make. It takes a smaller percentage of your income the more money you make. So there's examples of those in the books, but again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over those examples. Just if you want to know, read. Expenditures. So again, I imagine people should know what expenditure is, but I don't know if you know, so let me tell you. Expenditure is very simple. Just put, it's things that the government spend money on. Things that the government spends money on. Things that the government spends money on. Okay? When you look at the things that the government spends money on, there are a bunch of categories, but we're going over like the top 3 biggest ones. First, Social Security, we're going to say it's the biggest thing the government spends money on. It's the biggest thing the government spends money on. It's the biggest thing the government spends money on. Next up, national defense. Put all military spending is the second largest expenditure. All military spending is the second largest expenditure. National defense, all military spending is the second largest expenditure. So we're talking about every soldier who gets paid, every gun that gets bought, every bullet that gets created and purchased, every uniform, every tank, every airplane, every aircraft carrier. That's the second largest thing that we spend money on. Income security, unemployment, welfare, retirement. Put this down. These are called entitlement programs. These are called entitlement programs. And they are third. on the list. These are called entitlement programs, and they are third on the list. These are called entitlement programs, and they are third on the list. Okay. Moving from national governments into state governments. So I didn't make a section because, again, I think this would have looked too long for people if I'd have just, put subtitles and all that. But state government starts with intergovernmental revenue. So big word, intergovernmental revenue, but it's very simple. This is money received from another level of government. This is money received from another level of government. This is money received from another level of government. So like for a state government, is the most important. Intergovernmental revenue is the most important thing. Like they get most of their money from the federal level. Like Louisiana get most of their money from Washington D.C. Like that's how it works. Next, sales tax. Put this down. Sales tax is the second most important source of state revenue. Is the second most important source of state revenue. This is for sales tax. Is the second most important source of state revenue. So anytime you buy something, the tax that you're paying on it is, first of all, it's different from city to city. Like you buy something at McDonald's in Broussard, it's going to be different from buying something at McDonald's in Opelousas. I know because I experienced this when I was driving from Broussard to Opelousas. So sales tax is different from city to city, but as a state, every purchase you make, the tax that you pay goes to the state, and is real important. Anyway, moving from there into entitlement programs, most of the state spending is on entitlement programs. Most state spending is on entitlement programs. Most state spending is on entitlement programs. Okay, and the last little level of government, so we did federal, state, local. Local is the last one. This would start the local section. For property tax, local governments rely heavily on property tax. Local governments rely heavily on property tax. Local governments rely heavily on property tax. So, let's say you live in the St. Martinville, you own your home, you don't pay a house note, you still pay property tax every year. Depending on the size of your property and like how much your property is appraised for, like how much it's worth, your property tax will be different from the next person. And it's a way that the state's local level of government continuously gets money, even if, again, people, they grow their own food and they don't buy nothing, and they inherited money and they don't have to make money and pay income tax. The government still finds a way to get money from you if you have property and you pay that property tax every year. Sorry to go off on that. Let's wrap up section 1 with large amount of local income. Fees, fines, and permits make money for local governments. Fees, fines, and permits make money for local governments. One last time, fees, fines, and permits make money for local governments. So that's how they get a lot of money outside of property tax. Locally is, those speed traps where they give you tickets. Like that's the reason why they're giving you tickets, and like they out at the end of the month trying to meet their numbers that they're supposed to meet, because they trying to hit their numbers and create money for the local governments, for the local government continue to pay the police and everything else that they pay for. So that is section 1. That would be one day, and then we would move on to something else, like an assignment or something. But moving into lesson 2, this is chapter 22, chapter 22, lesson 2, fiscal policy. So once you have a budget in place, how you spend your money is your fiscal policy. So how to make a budget? Put this down. Budgets are based on what officials predict will happen. Budgets are based on what officials predict will happen. Budgets are based on what officials predict will happen. So there's no way to really know like what's gonna happen. Like they making prediction. Like last year we did this. This year we expect to do this. So what are some things that can ruin a budget? Put this down. Natural disasters can ruin a budget. Natural disasters can ruin a budget. Natural disasters can ruin a budget. And then when you drop down to that number 2, put down people can overestimate revenue. People can overestimate revenue. That's for number 2. People can overestimate revenue. So when you're looking at building a budget, things could go very wrong if you estimate that you're going to make $100 million as a government unit, and then you only make like 75 million or something like that. Or whatever number I said. 100 to 75. Like you falling 25 short is what I'm saying. So yeah, when those type of things happen, you got to kind of work to fix it. What every government wants to do is have a balanced budget. So for balanced budget, just put down, that is when your revenue and your spending is equal. Balanced budget, when your revenue and your spending is equal. One last time, when your revenue and your spending is equal. So that's what everybody wants, at least to have a balanced budget. What most politicians would love, and not many people can claim this, is to have a budget surplus. Put this down. When the government takes in more money than it spends. Budget surplus, when the government takes in more money than it spends. Budget surplus, when the government takes in more money than it spends. All right. So only one president has ever done that. Bill Clinton has, or let me not say ever. He's the only one that I know who has done it in recent memory. Wow. When the government takes in more than it spends, Bill Clinton is the only one who's done it in recent memory. Moving forward to budget deficit. Nobody wants this. Put this down. It is when the government spends more than it collects. When the government spends more than it collects. When the government spends more than it collects. Okay? So if the government spends more than it collects, then you're in debt. What is debt on a governmental level? Well, debt on any level. Put down money that has been borrowed but not paid back. Money that has been borrowed but not paid back. One more time. Money that has been borrowed but not paid back. So when the government is in debt, they keep track of it, and it's called the national debt. I know if you pay attention to politics, you may have heard people talk about the national debt, and they make it seem like it's a big important number. Well, it does affect you in 2 ways. So put this down first for how government debt hurts you, the national debt. Put the more money the government borrows, the less money consumers and businesses can borrow. The more money the government borrows, the less money consumers and businesses can borrow. The more money the government borrows, the less money consumers and businesses can borrow. So they run up a high bill in the government. It affects you because like you want to get a loan and you can't because the nation already owes so much. Like the supply of credit is going to decrease. And I know that's a big concept, but just stay with me. Going down, dropping to 2, put 2. Make sure this is right here. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Okay, yeah. Put if the government has to borrow at a high interest rate, they might have to cut spending or increase taxes. If the government has to borrow at a high interest rate, they may have to cut spending or increase taxes. If the government has to borrow at a high interest rate, they may have to cut spending or increase taxes. So cutting spending means less unemployment for people, less welfare, less food stamps, less government assistance, less everything for those people who really need it. If they gotta cut taxes, increase taxes, that means on the people who do have jobs and who are working, like they're taking home less money each check. So that's the reason why government spending can actually affect you quite a bit. Where we at? 3 economic goals. Sorry that this is taking so long, y'all. I'm doing my best to get through it and, keep it used to what you're used to, and also keep me what I'm used to. But 3 goals. Put this down for the 3 goals. In the 1940s, you don't have to put that yet, but in the 1940s, they came up with economic goals because before the 1940s, people just kind of did stuff. So here are the 3 economic goals starting in 1940. 1, keep people working. Keep creating goods. And keep consumers buying goods and services. Keep people working. Keep producing goods. Keep consumers buying goods and services. Keep people working. Keep producing goods. Keep people buying goods and services. Right? So those are your 3 economic goals. And the way you achieve those goals is with fiscal policy. So put this down. It's how the government uses taxes and spending to reach economic goals. It's how the government uses taxes and spending to reach economic goals. It's how the government uses taxes and spending to reach economic goals. So with the Federal Reserve from last chapter, that was monetary policy. Like that's just affecting the money supply. Fiscal is like how you use that money on a government level. So there's first thing is how you use it for good, and then the problems that come along with that. So if there's a recession that hits, how do you fix that? The economy slows down. There are 2 ways, really, and when you talk about Democrat and Republican, this is the basic difference between the 2. Put this down. For how to fix a recession. You can either increase spending, cut taxes, or a combination of both. You can either increase spending, cut taxes, or a combination of both. You can either increase spending, cut taxes, or a combination of both. So Obama, when he was president, he increased spending primarily. After he got out of there, Trump came in and Trump cut taxes. And how the economy was before the virus really started hitting and messing stuff up, you saw things going real well, stock market real high for America. This is because you had years of increased spending, followed by years of cutting taxes. Everything is great for a season, but then virus. And now I'm sitting at my house doing this when I could be playing Call of Duty. Problems with fiscal policy. Put down. Okay, so fiscal policy, spending, increasing, or cutting taxes comes with some issues. First issue, it's slow to take effect. Number 1 under problems with fiscal policy, it's slow to take effect. One more time, it's slow to take effect. Second, about fiscal policy being a problem, put down, it's hard to plan and put the plan into action. It's hard to plan and put the plan into action. It's hard to plan and put the plan into action. And 3, third problem with fiscal policy, and we almost done. Put down, it's hard to tell how good it works. It's hard to tell how good it works. It's hard to tell how good it works. So example of that, you may remember when Obama was president towards the end of his first term, he did these, first term was cash for clunkers. Second term was shovel-ready jobs. Like he was on a little campaign trail, like trying to get people to approve his shovel-ready jobs. But then, like, that was mid-presidency, second term. But toward the end, he was like, well, yeah, the shovel-ready jobs, shovels wasn't ready. Like, he made a joke about it because he put this plan into place, but they never seen it come to fruition as with him as president. It's because basically what the plan was to give a bunch of money to local governments, state governments, and have them spend it and create jobs. Well, it happened, but it happened way later than when he actually passed it and got it approved and stuff. Because you giving people a bunch of money and they don't have no plans, like they wasn't expecting it. So you give Louisiana a bunch of money and we don't necessarily have a plan in place to do nothing with this money. So then the problem with fiscal policy come in. You got to create a plan, and then you got to get it approved, then you got to start working on it. And the jobs did come, but they came after he was already out of office. So that's how that stuff worked. Automatic stabilizers. Let me wrap up. Put this down. These are programs that either increase or preserve income without the government doing anything. These are programs that preserve or increase income without the government doing anything. These are programs to increase or preserve income without the government doing anything. That's why they call it automatic. So the two automatic stabilizers are unemployment insurance, which is really just, unemployment. You get fired, you get unemployment. And a progressive tax system. So put this down for unemployment insurance. It kicks in as soon as a person gets laid off to give them some type of income. It kicks in as soon as a person gets laid off to give some kind of income. It kicks in as soon as a person gets laid off to give some kind of income. Right? So that's unemployment. So not if you get fired, not if you quit, but if the company's shutting down and the economy's bad, we shutting down, you got to find something. You got like 2 weeks until we close. You can get unemployment, and because you can get unemployment, bam. Progressive tax system. Last thing. Put this down. The less people earn in income, the less they pay in taxes, which helps if their income shrinks. The less people earn in income, the less they pay in taxes, which helps if their income shrinks. The less people earn, the less they pay in taxes, which helps if their income shrinks. So let's say you don't get fired, but the company downsizes and they're like, yo, we can't continue paying you what we paying you. We're going to have to, decrease your amount of money that you get. Well, the amount of taxes that you get taken out of your check also decreases. It adjusts. So you still have some money to go out and spend and kind of keep the economy going. So again, that is it for chapter 22. It's only 2 sections. Thank God it's only 2 sections. I'm going to go